As night falls, the city's skyline is outlined by 5 colorful neon lights like the background board of some virtual game. Lin Haotian sat in his small rental house less than 10 square meters. Outside the window was a constant stream of floating cars, and there was only the low sound of old air conditioning in his ears. He looked down at the slightly worn nerve connection device on the table, with a faint look in his eyes, but more of it was determined. "Brother, are you going to play again?" In the corner of the room, a thin figure wrapped in a blanket, with a little complaint and a little worry. Lin Xiaoqing, Lin Haotian's sister, is only 16 years old this year. However, due to congenital heart disease, her face is always as white as Zhang paper. She sat on the wheelchair, holding a broken comic book in her hand, and kept secretly staring at Lin Haotian. "Don't worry, Xiaoqing, today is just a daily task, and it will be done soon." Lin Haotian smiled, got up and walked to his sister's side, and rubbed her hair lightly. "You read the book well, don't keep staring at me, your eyes should be damaged." Lin Xiaoqing curled her lips and muttered, "You always say it's very fast, but it turns out that it's midnight." "Brother, is the game really that important? What's your career doing?" Lin Haotian felt nervous and did not show any expression on his face. He squatted down, looking at his sister's eyes, and his words were relaxed. "Game can make money, and you can treat your illness after making money. As for your studies, you can get up at any time. Don't worry, you have a proper attitude." What he didn't say was that for his sister's surgery, he had already finished his college classes and relied on the bonuses and trainees in the game to support his life. Skyland, this virtual reality game that spreads the world, is his only hope. Lin Xiaoqing still wanted to say something, but looking at the blood in his brother's eyes, he finally closed his mouth, but said in a short voice, "Then be careful." Lin Haotian clicked his head, returned to the table, and put on the neural connection equipment. At that moment, the sound and light of the real world quickly flew away, as if separated by an invisible curtain. His consciousness was pulled into an endless dark space. Then, a dazzling white light lit up in front of his eyes, and the cold reminder of the system was raised in his ears. "Welcome back, Tian Blade player, the system is loading." When the vision was clear again, Lin Haotian was already standing on the surface of a deserted planet, with red sand and soil under his feet. On the far skyline, 2 huge stars were hanging around, emitting a dark blue light. His game character Tian Blade is wearing a black battle suit with a sticky body, with a short energy blade flickering with cold light hanging around his waist, and a folding sniper gun behind him, emitting a cold-killing atmosphere. The loading is completed. Current location, Karzace Wasteland. Mission goal, clear off the remaining mechanical snails. The system sounds up again, and a mission panel pops up in the upper left corner of the field, showing detailed awards and time limits. Lin Haotian glanced at the mission panel and slided on the corner of his mouth. This task is not worth mentioning to him at all. Although there are not many awards, they are not very good at talking. He moved his fingers, and the short blade flipped a flower in his hand. His body flashed behind him, and his whole person was like a black shadow, heading towards the gathering place of the mechanical gangs far away. The sand in the Karzace Wasteland was very strong, making people's eyes silence, but Lin Haotian's movements were not affected at all. His perception in the game was extremely extraordinary, and he could hear the slight crawling sound of a group of mechanical worms 100 meters away. It took him a short time to set a small group of targets, more than a dozen mechanical creatures that looked like spiders, made of metal, with 8 long legs carrying sharp barbs, surrounding a bunch of deserted starship skeletons. "You are the only ones, fight quickly," Lin Haotian said in a low voice, then pulled out a miniature electromagnetic bullet from his waist, and gently swung it, and the bullet slammed out an arc in the air, landing accurately in the center of the gang. Bang! With a sound of shock, the blue arc exploded instantly, and the surrounding mechanical snails seemed to have been pressed down and the action was stiff for a moment. Lin Haotian grabbed the empty file and his body suddenly rose up. The short blade turned into a cold light in his hand. It almost cut the 3 mechanical snails in the blink of an eye, sparking 4 sparks. The remaining group of worms quickly reacted, and made a sharp sound, squeaking towards Lin Haotian. He was calm and slipped his foot down, easily avoiding the piercing of a piercing leg, and at the same time, he slashed his backhand and directly split the other party's core chip into 2.5. The entire battle process was clean and neat, without more than a single action, as if it had been practiced thousands of times apart. In less than 5 minutes, the ground was covered with mechanical skeletons, and there was no dust on Lin Haotian's battle suit. The system prompt sound came up again, the mission was completed, and the experience value was 5,000, 2,000, and the rare material mechanical core X3. Okay, I'll buy some medicine. Lin Haotian put away his short blade, glanced at the bonus column, then opened the communication channel, prepared to contact a familiar businessman and convert the materials into cash. But at this moment, a sudden hurried voice came from the communication channel, Skyblade. Are you in the Karzace wasteland, right? Come and help us quickly, we are blocked by the people from the Flame Alliance. The person who talks about Lin Haotian is an old teammate. His ID is Ye Xiaoqing. He is a straight-hearted guy. He has never helped Lin Haotian run errands and sells things. When I heard this, the situation seemed to be quite urgent. Fire Alliance? Are they looking for trouble again? Lin Haotian's eyebrows were stunning. The Flare Alliance was the largest guild in the game. The leader Zhang Yaowei was an ambitious guy. He has not been used for single players in recent years, especially those like Lin Haotian who are unwilling to join the guild. Blind. They said we had snatched their resources and insisted on handing over the equipment or just clear the floor. The sound of the Iron Fist was filled with anger. We have few people and can't beat them at all. Come quickly. Lin Haotian was silent for a second, and then replied coldly, don't act rashly and wait for me to arrive. After closing the communication channel, he quickly opened the star map and locked the coordinates posted by the Iron Fist. It was about 10 kilometers away, not far away, but there might be ambush from the Flame Alliance on the road. Without thinking too much, he directly summoned his own floating motorcycle, and the sound of the engine started to sound, and the whole person turned into a black line and flew towards the target location. The terrain of the Karzace wasteland is complex, full of cracked valleys and abrupt rocks. Lin Haotian drove his motorcycle to shuttle through the narrow gap, so fast that it almost sparked. His brain has been calculating the next solution. There are many people in the Flame Alliance. Although Zhang Yaowei's guy is generous on the surface, he is extremely small-minded and has not given Lin Hao a lot of money in the past few years. This time, they were probably rushing themselves to block the iron boxing. Sure enough, not long after, a piece of open ground appeared in the vision ahead. You could see dozens of players wearing a unified red war armor in a circle. In the center was the Fist and his teammates, who had already been slapped in color and the equipment was knocked out for a lot of durability. The Skyblade is here. The first Iron Fist discovered Lin Haotian's figure, and Lima shouted. His temperament was filled with excitement. Among the crowd of the Flame Alliance, a burly man turned over. The game character is a refit warrior carrying a huge energy axe on his shoulder, and his aura is imposing. He grinned and said loudly, Yi, isn't this the god of Heavenly Blade? Why did you finally show up? Lin Haotian stopped the motorcycle, turned over and landed, and swept the other party coldly with his eyes, and his words were calm and stinging. Zhang Yaowei, is it interesting to bully newcomers? If you have the ability, you can come. Zhang Yaowei laughed and snatched the axe to the ground, shaking the sand and soil. Tian Blade, you are not right. The Flame Alliance, have always talked about rules. They have snatched our resources, but they can't get over points at the handover point, right? But don't you feel tired if you give me a single person? Why don't you join us and everyone spend money together? Stop talking. Lin Haotian directly knocked him off, his hand pressed on the hilt of the short blade. I must take away the person today. You have to let the way, and you have to start hitting, choose one. The atmosphere on the scene suddenly became tight. The players of the Flame League clenched their weapons. Their fists were shrunk behind Lin Haotian, and their faces were full of anxiety. Zhang Yaowei narrowed his eyes and looked at Lin Haotian up and down, as if he wanted to see something from his face. At this moment, a cold voice suddenly came from a distance. breaking the deadlock. The rules of the Flame Alliance are really visible to the elders. A few dozen people surrounded several scattered people, and their faces were really thick. Everyone looked at the sound and saw a player wearing a dark gray cloak walking over, wearing a top hood covering most of his face, and a few electronic devices that looked like they were made of self-made ones, emitting a strange atmosphere on his body. Her ID appears as shadow, and the level and equipment data are blurred, as if it is blocked by some technology. Shadow? Who is this guy? Zichuan muttered. Obviously he had never heard of this name. Lin Haotian also had a slight brow. The feeling the shadow gave him was very strange, as if he could see through everything, but it made people completely unable to understand the details. He didn't say anything, he just watched quietly. Zhang Yaoi's face became a little difficult to see, and he snorted coldly, "Where's a wild way, and you dare to take care of the affairs of the Flame Alliance? Those who know each other will be far away, otherwise you will be cleared together." The shadow seemed to have not heard his threat, so he walked slowly to Lin Haotian and said in a low voice, "Tianren, I have a deal to talk to you, help me, I will fight this stage." The shadow smiled low, and there was a little playfulness in the sound. "Tian Blade, who doesn't know? The #1 unique wolf in the game is the Eye of the Flame Alliance. I'm not going to choose you at will." Lin Haotian was silent for a second, then pointed at the head. "Okay, tell me your conditions." The shadow didn't say anything anymore, turned to Zhang Yaowei, and his voice suddenly became cold. "Fire Alliance, I'm going to take care of this matter today. You have to retreat, try to see if you can withstand my means." After saying that, she raised her hand and swung it, and several small, unmanned planes flew out from under her cloak, floating in the air, making a low buzzing sound. Those uninhabited shapes are very strange, like some kind of experimental product, with a dim blue stream on the surface. Zhang Yaoi's face became even more difficult to see. He gritted his teeth, as if he had considered his shape, and finally snorted coldly, "Okay, I'll give you face today, let's go." The people from the Flame Alliance continued to disperse, and the Iron Fist relaxed and hurriedly said thanks to Lin Haotian. Lin Haotian didn't say much, turned his head and looked at the shadow. Calm, say, what is your deal?" The shadow took off his hood, revealing a pretty and somewhat indifferent face. The eyes behind the black lens seemed to be able to see through people's hearts. She said lightly, "My name is Ye Xiaoqing. There are some abnormal data in the game. I want to ask you to investigate. As a reply, I can give you any resources you want, even the internal information of the Flame Alliance." Lin Haotian raised his eyebrows. What an unusual data. This sounds like an ordinary game mission. He didn't rush to answer, but just said lightly, "I'll take a look and give me some time. The little bit of snow is clear, and I don't say more," turning around and disappearing into the sand of the wasteland. Lin Haotian looked at her back and there was a little more doubt in his brain. What exactly is this woman? What kind of trouble will the abnormal data in the game bring? Far away, the sun's remaining vicissitudes were on the wasteland, stretching his shadow. The wind blows over, bringing inexplicable anxiety. Lin Haotian held the short blade tightly and thought that this game was far more simple than the surface. Lin Haotian stood in the wind sand of the Karzais wasteland, his eyes still stayed in the direction where Ye Xiaoqing disappeared. The sun's remaining fate was swallowed by the night, and the temperature on the wasteland dropped rapidly, bringing a biting chill. He lowered his head and glanced at the virtual interface on his wrist. Their thanks to the Iron Fist and the communication channel were still constantly responding, but he didn't have the heart to respond, but he just turned off the channel with his hands. Abnormal data. He muttered in a low voice, recalling Ye Xiaoqing's eyes hidden behind the black lens. Yang Li seemed to be able to see through everything. This made him feel a little uncomfortable. As a top player in the game, he never liked to be driven away by someone. But the appearance of this woman, and the anomalous data she mentioned, really aroused his curiosity. "Tianren, why are you still standing there? Let's go quickly. The helping fellow of Wani Flame Alliance will kill you back, we can't stand it." The sound of the Iron Fist was coming from a distance, with a little anxiety. He and a few teammates have packed up their equipment and are ready to leave this place of trouble. Lin Haotian returned to his senses and clicked a little, but didn't say much. He turned over and flew on the motorcycle and started to attack the Iron Fist and said, "You go back to the safe area first. I have something to deal with, so I can contact you at night." Zichuan was stunned and wanted to ask something, but looking at Lin Haotian's cold face, he still took the words back, but muttered in a small voice, "Okay, be careful." The motorcycle's engine sounded again, and Lin Haotian accelerated and drove towards the depths of the wasteland. He didn't have a clear destination, he just wanted to find a peaceful place to sort out the lines in his brain. Ye Xiaoqing's appearance was too sudden. Her methods and those self-made unmanned opportunities were obviously not something that ordinary players could possess. More importantly, why did she come to her? There are many people who know the idea of Skyblade in the game, but those who can accurately find his position and dare to directly choose the Flame Alliance are definitely not simple characters. The night became increasingly heavy, and the sand in the calcized wasteland gradually calmed down. Lin Haotian parked the motorcycle on a high ground, far away from the shattered valley, and occasionally he could hear the low roar of mechanical creatures. He sat down against a rock, opened the personal panel inside the game, and began to flip through the recent mission records and system prompts. He wanted to see if there was any spider horse that could match the anomalous data that Ye Xiaoqing said. At this moment, the personal communication channel suddenly flashed, and an unidentified message popped out, "Skyblade, don't waste time checking it yourself. The things in the game diary have long been cleaned up. If you want to know the truth, come to the Blackstone mining area to find me. Shadow." Lin Haotian had a snail of eyebrows. This shadow was indeed not a fuel-efficient light. Even if he checked the diary, he could guess it. He hesitated for a second, and his fingers knocked on the virtual keyboard for a few times, and replied with a message, "Why do you want to help you? Give us a reason." The other party's reply was almost instantly, "Because you need money. I can give you the core information of the Flame Alliance to convert it into star coins and give your sister 10 surgeries. Why, isn't this reason enough?" Lin Haotian's fingers were a little complicated. "My sister's surgery has always been a big rock that presses on his heart," and Ye Xiaoqing's words directly hit his soft ribs. He gritted his teeth, turned off the communication channel, and quickly locked the location of the Blackstone mining on the star map. The place is on the edge of the Karzace wasteland. It is a deserted mine with complex terrain. There are often high-level monsters that usually players dare not approach. Since you are so sure, let's see what you have. Lin Haotian said in a low voice, then started the motorcycle, and advanced at full speed towards the Blackstone mining area. Along the way, the scenery of the wasteland gradually became even more deserted, with abandoned mining equipment and broken mechanical slaughter on the ground, and a faint smell of metal was scattered in the air. Lin Haotian's perception was adjusted to the highest level and he was ready to ambush at any time. The Flame Alliance just ate a fuss, and Zhang Yaowei would definitely not be good at silence, and this shadow Ye Xiaoqing, maybe he was playing some things. About half an hour later, the silhouette of the Blackstone mining area appeared in the field. It was a region where holes were dug out. The huge mine pit was like a huge opening, swallowing the light around it. Lin Haotian slowed down, stopped near the entrance of the mine, glanced around, and found no trace of any player. "Don't hide it when you come, tell me what's going on." He leaned against the motorcycle, his voice rising coldly, and his hand was already pressing on the hilt of the short blade. The air was silent for a few seconds, and then a familiar figure walked out from the shadows beside the mine. It was still the dark gray cloak, and the hood covered most of the face. Ye Xiaoqing's voice smiled, "It's very fast, Tian Blade. I thought you had to hesitate for at least 2 days. Stop talking." Lin Haotian cut her off and stared at the other party with a sharp look. "What is the abnormal data you are talking about? Also, how do you know about my sister?" Ye Xiaoqing took off her hood, revealing a pretty face, and the eyes behind the black lens were sly. She walked slowly to Lin Haotian, her lingering words, "Don't be nervous, I'm not the bottom of the Flame Alliance, nor am I troubled by you. Regarding your sister's affairs, who in the game doesn't know that Tianren is a loner who works hard for his family? Just check it a little and you can guess it's almost 10. Lin Haotian's face has not changed, but his heart has become more vigilant. This woman knows too much and may even have some information about him. He didn't say anything, but just waited quietly for the other party to continue. Ye Xiaoqing saw that he didn't answer, and didn't care. He continued to say it himself. As for abnormal data, to put it simply, it is some abnormal phenomena in Skyland. You should have noticed it too, right? For example, the rewards of some missions suddenly disappear, or some confusions appearing in the system prompts, and sometimes, the time flow rate in the game will inexplicably slow down. Lin Haotian's eyebrows were slightly shaking. He had indeed encountered these phenomena, but most players thought it was a system bug, so no one delved into it. He asked coldly, "What does these things have to do with us? The system is just for the official to repair them." Ye Xiaoqing slammed her head and said in a low voice, "If it were just an ordinary bug, the official would have fixed it long ago. But these abnormal data are not system errors, but codes that someone deliberately implanted. I suspect that the operation companies behind the game, and even some organizations at higher levels, are using Skyland to do some practical experiments that cannot be seen." Experience? Lin Haotian raised his eyebrows, with a trace of disdain in his language. "Are you a science fiction movie? No matter how awesome the game is, it is just a virtual world. What kind of experience can you have?" Ye Xiaoqing did not answer directly, but took out a small projection device from her waist, and a holographic image appeared between the two people. It is a record of a stream of data, showing some incomprehensible codes and charts, as well as several red warning marks. "This is a piece of data I took from the game server." Ye Xiaoqing pointed to the image, and his language became serious. "These codes are not the content of the game itself, but some kind of monitoring program that can record the player's neural reactions and may even affect the actual brain activities. In short, some people want to control the player's consciousness through the game." After Lin Haotian finished listening, his face finally changed. Although he did not completely believe Ye Xiaoqing, these data did not seem simple. He was silent for a while and asked, "What do you want me to do?" Ye Xiaoqing turned off the projection and looked at him with his eyes straight. "There is a hidden server section deep in the Blackstone mining area, and there are more abnormal data. I need your fighting power to help me open the way to the section. As a reply, I will give you the internal information of the Flame Alliance, and even help you solve Zhang Yaowei's help." Lin Haotian didn't rush to answer, and his brain quickly weighed the pros and cons. This mission is quite risky. The monster level deep in the Blackstone mine is far beyond ordinary areas, and Ye Xiaoqing's real purpose is still unclear. But on the other hand, the information of the Flame Alliance is indeed very attractive to him. If Zhang Yaowei can grasp Zhang Yaowei's weaknesses, the future battle will be much easier. "Okay, I'll help you." He finally opened his mouth, his temperament still cold. "But I have the conditions. After the mission is completed, you have to tell me how you got these data and your true identity." Ye Xiaoqing was stunned for a moment, then laughed and said, "Okay, the deal is done. But I would like to remind you first that the depth of the mine is not something you can do, just prepare your mind." The two of them quickly moved towards the depths of the mine without saying anything. The terrain of the Blackstone mining area is more complicated than Lin Haotian imagined. From the mine pit, there are narrow passages and collapsed rock walls. The air is filled with heavy scent of sulfur, which makes people feel breathless. He walked in front, holding the short blade in his hand, ready to face the sudden situation at any time, while Ye Xiaoqing followed behind, holding a small scanner in his hand, adjusting the direction from time to time. There is a silence in front. After about 10 minutes of leaving, Lin Haotian suddenly stopped and said in a low voice. His hearing was almost top level in the game, and he could hear the low sound from the depth of the passage, like some mechanical creature moving. Ye Xiao's sunny and a red light spot was displayed on the scanner. "It's a mine guarding, a mechanical fetus, with a number of about 20, and a level of about 60. Can you handle it?" Lin Haotian snorted coldly, without replying, and directly removed the folding sniper gun from behind, quickly assembled, aiming at the darkness in the depths of the passage. A few seconds later, a huge mechanical fog crawled out of the shadow, all over, and the poisonous beads at the tail were flashing with a faint green light, making people feel impatient. Bang! With the sound of guns, the energy of the sniper gun hit the core chip of the mechanical yard with sparks. The guy was directly on the ground and could not move. Then, the other mechanical images were shocked and crawled out of the passageway, making a sharp sound, and rushed towards the two. "I'll hand you over to you, don't drag your back." Lin Haotian said the next sentence, and his figure flashed and he had already entered the center of the group. The short blade turned into cold lights in his hand, and each hit was extremely accurate, and it almost solved 3 or 4 mechanical holes in the blink of an eye. Ye Xiaoqing was not vague. She raised her hand and swung her hand. Several small unmanned planes flew out from under her cloak, floating in the air, making a low buzzing sound. The surface of the unmanned machine is flashing with blue light, and then an arc is shot out, accurately hitting the joints of the mechanical fog, making their movements slow, creating more attack opportunities for Lin Haotian. The two of them cooperated unexpectedly and tacitly. Before long, the mechanical trunks in the passage were cleaned up, and the ground was filled with broken metal bones. Lin Haotian put away the short blade, turned his head and looked at Ye Xiaoqing, with an accent in his language. "Your thing is quite useful, where did you get it?" Ye Xiaoqing smiled and did not answer positively. "It's just a gadget, I'll teach you how to do it another day. Let's go, the day is still ahead." The two continued to go deeper, the passage became narrower and the air became more and more depressed. Lin Haotian felt a little uneven, and the environmental changes in the game should not be so obvious. It seemed that someone deliberately adjusted the data, making this area even more dangerous. Sure enough, I didn't go far, and Ye Xiaoqing's scanner suddenly emitted a hurry alarm. Her face changed and she said in a low voice, "There are abnormal fluctuations, there may be traps ahead, be careful." As the sound fell, the rock walls on both sides of the passage suddenly vibrated, and several red lasers shot out from the darkness, accurately locking the two people's positions. Lin Haotian reacted very quickly, grabbed Ye Xiaoqing and rushed to the side, barely avoiding the laser shot. "What kind of ghost thing is this?" He gritted his teeth and asked. His eyes swept around, and found that the source of the laser was some automatic anti-prevention devices hidden in the rock walls, which obviously were not the original design of the game. Ye Xiaoqing's face also became a little difficult to see. She said in a low voice, "It seems that we have been discovered that these devices are protection mechanisms for server nodes, and some people don't want to let us get close." Lin Haotian sneered and held the short blade. "Don't you want to let us get closer?" After saying that, he suddenly rose up and rushed towards the laser device. The short blade flew in his hand, slashing several devices into pieces. Ye Xiaoqing was not idle either. She quickly operated the unmanned machine, emitting a radio wave, and temporarily blocked the locking function of other devices. The two of them were hard all the way and finally came to a huge underground cavity. In the center of the cavity, a data core radiating with blue light floats, and there are endless streams of jumping around, like some living thing, constantly changing shape. "That's it, the server day." There was a burst of excitement in Ye Xiaoqing's voice. "I need some time to download data. Please help me keep the entrance and don't let anything get close." Lin Haotian clicked his head, turned around and stood at the entrance of the cavity, and looked around with vigilance. He could feel the pressure here getting stronger and stronger, as if there were two invisible eyes watching them in the dark. At this moment, the ground suddenly vibrated, and a low roar came from the passage far away, as if some huge creature was approaching. Lin Haotian's face became even colder. He held the short blade and said in a low voice, "It seems that the trouble is not over yet." Lin Haotian stood at the entrance of the underground cavity, holding the short blade tightly in his hand, and his eyes were coldly slapped at the depth of the passage. The low roar was getting closer and closer, accompanied by the slight tremor on the ground, and an inexplicable sense of pressure was filled with the air. He could feel that the visitor was definitely not an ordinary mechanical monster, but something more dangerous. Behind him, Ye Xiaoqing was operating a stool-like end with all his heart, and his long fingers quickly tapped on the virtual keyboard to try to crack the protection layer of the data core. The blue data leaped around her, reflecting her face a little white, but the eyes hidden behind the black lens were unusually focused. How long will it take? Lin Haotian asked without replying. His voice was low and he felt impatient. For at least 5 minutes, the encryption layer of this thing is more complicated than I thought. Ye Xiaoqing gritted her teeth and replied, with a dense bead of sweat coming out of the head. You stay first, don't let anything get close to this place. Lin Haotian didn't say anything anymore, but just snorted coldly, adjusted his posture slightly under his feet, and prepared for the battle. The roaring sound from the depths of the passage suddenly became even more sharp, and then a huge figure slowly emerged from the darkness. It was a giant mechanical beast, shaped like an enlarged rhino. Its body was made of black metal. The surface was covered with a layer of energy shield flashing with red light. The limbs were thick and tight, like they could stomp rocks with one foot, and the sharp corners on the top scattered dangerous arcs. The system guards, the name is Armored Groundbreaker, level 75. Ye Xiaoqing glanced at the scanner, and there was a tight flash in his voice. This guy is the final defense line of the server node, a high attack power and defense. Be careful. Level 75? Lin Haotian sneered at the corner of his mouth, and a warring moment ignited in his eyes. Just, what is the limit to trying my best? Before the words finished, the iron armor-breaking ground let out a deafening roar. The ground was shattered by its impact. Then it lowered its head, and its sharp corners faced Lin Haotian, like a tank. The speed is so fast that people can hardly see its movements. Lin Haotian flashed, and he avoided this blow from his side. His sharp corners rubbed against his battle suit, bringing a harsh friction sound. He quickly countered, and the short blade turned into a cold light in his hand, piercing the side of the iron armor breaking earth. However, the blade collided with the energy shield, and a sound of metal croaking was released. The shield was only slightly moved, without any sign of breaking. Do you have such a hard defense? Lin Haotian's eyebrows were snaking, and quickly retreated a few steps to open the distance. He glanced at the body of the armored earthbreaker and tried to find the weakness. This level of security cannot be completely impeccable in the system design, and there will always be a certain key that can be fatal. The iron armor splitter did not give him too much time to think. His huge body suddenly turned, his limbs stomped on the ground, and several gaps broke open in the ground in an instant, and a wave of shock rolled towards Lin Haotian. He reacted very quickly, with a little pointed foot, and he rushed into the air, barely avoiding the impact, and at the same time he pulled out the folding sniper gun from behind and quickly aimed at the sharp corner of the top of the iron armor breaker's head. Bang! The energy horn accurately hit the sharp corner, making a sound of explosion. The arc around the sharp corner became disorderly, and the action of the iron armor breaking ground was stiff for a moment. Lin Haotian's eyes lit up. Sure enough, the energy core of this guy is near the sharp corner. As long as he destroys that point, he can destroy its shield. Xiaoqing, give me some trouble. Lin Haotian shouted, and at the same time, a roll fell to the ground, avoiding the sharp corners of the iron armored earthbreaker who rushed to the ground again. Ye Xiaoqing gritted her teeth and quickly adjusted several small unmanned machines, floating around the iron armor breaking ground, emitting a blue electric wave. The electric wave interferes with its perception system, making its movements a little slower. Lin Haotian grabbed the empty file and suddenly hit the side of the iron armor breaking ground. The short blade stabbed hard at the base of the sharp corner. At the same time, he took out a high-explosive electromagnetic bullet from his waist and directly plugged it into the gap connecting the sharp corner and the head. Retreat! He whispered, and the whole person quickly retreated, and the bullet exploded in the next second. The blue arc instantly swallowed the head of the iron armor breaker. The sharp corners were blown to pieces, and the energy shield collapsed, revealing the exposed mechanical structure inside. The iron armor earthbreaker let out a painful roar, and his body began to tremble violently, as if he had lost control. Lin Haotian did not give it a chance to breathe. The short blade continuously swept out several cold lights, accurately cutting into the key points of the mechanical structure, sparking 4 times, and finally, this huge beast fell to the ground, turning into a pile of skeletons with black smoke. Do it! Lin Haotian gasped, wiped the sweat from his head, turned to look at Ye Xiaoqing. What's wrong with you? Ye Xiaoqing didn't raise her head, and she was feeling tired in her voice. It's a little bit short, the protection layer is broken, and she is downloading data. Wait, there's something wrong. Her voice fell, and a sharp behead sound suddenly came out from the core of the data, and the blue light became even more dazzling, as if it was about to explode. Ye Xiaoqing's face turned white in an instant, and her fingers quickly operated on the end, trying to connect in the picture. What's this? Lin Haotian walked over with a snail, his eyes vigilantly looking at the core of the data. Someone is following us in the reverse direction. Ye Xiaoqing said, gritting her teeth, her voice full of anxiety. The system behind the server has started the self-destruction program. If it is not opened immediately, our game data and even the actual neural connection equipment will be damaged. Lin Haotian's face also became difficult to look. He knew that once the neural connection equipment was damaged, his mind would be ignorant and severely he might directly die. Without thinking too much, he said to Ye Xiaoqing directly, down and open the connection, now. No, the data has not been completely downloaded yet. If it is open now, we will be in vain. Ye Xiaoqing gritted her teeth, and her fingers still did not stop. Give me another 30 seconds, I can save the core data. Lin Haotian lowered his curse and turned around and stood beside Ye Xiaoqing, staring at the static surrounding the data core. 30 seconds are not long, but at this moment, every second seems to be infinitely stretched. The light in the core of the data became more and more dazzling, and the temperature in the cavity was also rising rapidly, and the air began to become hot. 10 seconds. Ye Xiaoqing's voice was already trembling, and it was obviously a huge pressure. At this moment, a violent shock suddenly came from the rock walls around the cavity, and several red lasers shot out from the darkness, pointing directly to the locations of the two people. Lin Haotian reacted very quickly, and grabbed Ye Xiaoqing and fell to the ground. The laser brushed over their heads and swept over, hitting the rock wall behind him, and blasting out a piece of gravel. The defense system is activated again. Ye Xiaoqing gritted her teeth and said, quickly adjusting her posture, and trying to continue the operation at the end of the picture. Don't worry about the data, you have to save your life. Lin Haotian roared, pulled Ye Xiaoqing up and rushed to the other side of the hollow. At the same time, he took out the last electromagnetic bullet from his waist and threw it hard towards the core of the data. Bang! The slam burst out, and the blue arc instantly swallowed the data core. The laser device around seemed to be disturbed, and the action became a little heavier. Lin Haotian took the opportunity to pull Ye Xiaoqing into a narrow sideway, avoiding the direct laser range. Data, I haven't. Ye Xiaoqing panted heavily, her eyes full of unwillingness. I'm not alive, so what's the matter? Lin Haotian stopped her, speaking coldly, didn't you say someone is following us? If you don't leave, we can't even get out of the game. Ye Xiaoqing bit her lip, and finally stopped sticking to her head. The two quickly ran out along the sideways, and a huge explosion sounded in the cavity behind them. The core of data collapsed suddenly, and the slamming waves blew up the surrounding rock walls, and the gravel fell like rain, almost burying them in it. After finally breaking out of the black stone mining area, the two of them stood beside the mine, gasping for breath. The night cast covers the calcized wasteland, and on the far skyline, the two stars radiate blue light, as if watching everything by their cold eyes. You have saved at least some of the data? Lin Haotian leaned against a piece of rock and was trying to explore the language. Ye Xiaoqing glanced a little, took out a small storage device from his waist, and smiled bitterly. I only got a small part of it, and I can barely prove that the abnormal data in the game was not accidental. Lin Haotian was silent for a while, and then asked, you just said that someone was following us in reverse, what does it mean? Ye Xiaoqing's face became a little solemn, and she said in a low voice, it means that some people behind the game have noticed us. They can directly use the server to pre-order the game, and may even lock our real position. I doubt that this is not just a simple game operation company, but there may be a bigger organization behind it. Real position? Lin Haotian's eyes became clear in an instant. You mean, can they find our actual position? It's okay in theory. Ye Xiaoqing pushed the lens. His language was cold but with a slight worry. The neural connection equipment itself records a large amount of personal data. If they have enough authority, they can completely follow the equipment in reverse. But don't worry, I have set up a firewall, which should be safe at the moment. Quickly? Lin Haotian sneered, obviously not satisfied with this answer. He lowered his head and glanced at the virtual interface on his wrist, and suddenly his brain flashed his white face. If there is really something behind the game that cannot be seen and connected to the real world, then his and his sister's safety will be threatened. Tianren, I know what you are thinking. Ye Xiaoqing seemed to have seen through his thoughts and his words became a little more relaxed. This is indeed dangerous, but if you quit now, you may never know the truth. Moreover, with your personality, you shouldn't be willing to be driven away by others, right? Lin Haotian didn't say anything, but just looked at her coldly. Ye Xiaoqing said it was right, he was never a person who would easily retreat. Whether it was the battle in the game or the pressure in reality, he gritted his teeth and came over. This time, even if the opponent is a large group behind the game, he will not easily recognize it. Okay, I'll continue to work with you. He finally opened his mouth, his voice low but determined, but I have a condition that from now on, I have to discuss any action with me and no decisions can be made without authorization. Ye Xiaoqing was stunned for a moment, then laughed and said, okay, deal. Don't worry, I don't want to compete with the first solo wolf in the game. The two people reached a common understanding and were ready to return to the safe area for rest. But at this moment, Lin Haotian's communication channel suddenly flashed, and an emergency message from the Iron Fist popped out, Tian Blade, it's a bad thing. The helper of the Flame Alliance blocked people outside the safety zone, saying that he wanted to seek revenge on you. He brought several hundred people and even the heavy weapons were brought out. Lin Haotian had a snake, and the report of the Flame Alliance came faster than he had imagined. Zhang Yaowei, that guy, is indeed not the one who will swallow this easily. He turned to Ye Xiaoqing, and his words were calm, it seems that the trouble is coming again. What are your plans? Ye Xiaoqing pushed the glass and sneered at the corner of her mouth, Flame Alliance? Just right, train them. I have some internal data from their guild in my hand. If used well, it can make them get up inside first. What do you think? Lin Haotian clicked a little, and a cold light flashed in his eyes, that's it. Zhang Yaowei wants to play big, so I'll play with him to the end. The night wind blew through the Kaosai's wasteland, bringing a biting chill. Lin Haotian and Ye Xiaoqing looked at each other, then started the floating motorcycle at the same time, and drove at full speed in the direction of the safety zone. Far away, the red flag of the Flame Alliance seemed to be hidden in the night, as if it was a sign that a bigger storm was about to come. At the same time, in a small rental house in the real world, the indicator lights of the nerve-connected equipment are shut down. Lin Haotian took off his helmet, vomited a long breath, and his eyes were filled with fatigue. He turned his head and looked at Lin Xiaoran in the corner of the room. She was already asleep wrapped in a blanket, with a quiet expression on her white face. Brother, you're back. Lin Xiaoran opened her eyes in a daze, her voice so light that it seemed to be shut down at any time. Yes, I'm done just now. Lin Haotian smiled, walked to his sister's side, and helped her to put on a blanket. Sleep, I'll accompany you to the hospital for a retrieval tomorrow. Lin Xiaoran clicked his head and his eyes closed again. Lin Haotian looked at her sleep, and he didn't feel relaxed. The unusual data in the game, Ye Xiaoqing's warning, and the threat of the Flame Alliance, these things were like big rocks that pressed on his heart, making him feel breathless. He walked to the window and pushed a zither open, and the night wind swayed around the hustle and bustle of the city. On the far-flung skyline, the lights of the floating current intersect into a light network, like a projection of some virtual world. He clenched his fists and said in a low voice, whether it's a game or it's true, no one wants to move my sister. The night outside the window was dark, as if there were countless unknown secrets hidden. And Lin Haotian knew that this battle had just begun.